Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Space City X-Files. I'm very happy you decided to join us again because we have one of the granddaddy UFO incidents lined up for you today, folks. Now, everyone's probably heard of the Roswell UFO incident at some point, right? If you haven't, hop on your computer and just type in Roswell, and in seconds you'll have all the information you can stand. It's probably the most significant case in UFO history and has been attributed to kickstarting the whole ufology conspiracy theory movement. Well, the case we'll be talking about today hangs right up there with that very Roswell incident. In fact, it's been dubbed England's Roswell. So what do we have in store for you today? We got multiple sightings by groups of people, evidence left behind, good old government cover-ups, alien messages left behind, and all packaged and bundled up for a good old mystery for you to run wild with. This is the account of the Rendlesham Forest Incident. Before we get going, I'll get the announcements out of the way right quick, because trust me, you ain't going to want this story to stop until you find out the conclusion. Trust me. So sit tight while I try to pay some bills real quick. Space City X-Files greatly appreciate you being here today and choosing us as your podcast destination. Your support helps us each week as we strive to up our quality of show and our continued growth towards accomplishing our goals for the future. If you're wondering how you can support the show, I'll tell you how you can do that right now. One is if you're interested in becoming a certified member of the show, you can click on the Patreon tab located on our website. Once there, you can sign up for a $5 or $10 a month membership, and that gets you access to behind-the-scenes content, early releases, unreleased full episodes, and even free merchandise that will be dropping on you randomly. Two, if you're not quite ready for the monthly membership, that's okay. But if you still like to buy us a cup of coffee or perhaps a beer, there's a support us with the tip tab located on the website, and there you can type in whatever amount your heart compels you to give. 50 cents, $1, $2, whatever. It's all greatly appreciated. Three, another way that helps us out greatly is wherever you're listening to us, leave us a written review on what you thought of the show. Whether you love the show, whether you thought it ate ass, we appreciate your review, and your feedback helps us to continue to grow and shape our content to what our listeners want to hear and enjoy. One last plug, our show store is now live on the website, so if you want to wear what we wear for some reason, look badass doing it, or you want some of our holographic show stickers, they're available now for purchase. So just mosey on over to the website, click on the merch tab, and you can purchase them there. All right, that concludes the announcements. All right. I think we're ready to begin. So quick, just to give you a summary of what the show will entail. First, we're going to take a brief look at the Rendlesham Forest area, check for anything of significance with the past or present history. Now, y'all know how I am already, how I feel about getting to know the area. So if you listen to the other cases, you know how I am. In my opinion, a true detective looks at every aspect in his investigation because you never know what you're going to find. The last person may have overlooked it. You double check and you find something new. Second, we'll take a deep dive into the details of this case, dissecting every claim and statement. And third, we'll take a look at what the local authorities concluded in the case and any other interesting theories or motives. And last, what you all been waiting for, we'll go over personal findings and theories on what we think really went down. So for now, what's the deal with Rendlesham? Was this an isolated incident, or is the area a hotspot for paranormal activity? If it were, it definitely wouldn't be the first. Take a look at the Bridgewater Triangle area. If you're not familiar with that, we got an episode coming up soon, so stay tuned for that one. But the Rendlesham Forest is in what I understand to be the Woodbridge, United Kingdom. It's approximately 3,700 acres of mixed woodland forestry. While the surrounding area is kind of rural-like, the forest currently has many trails for people to get their walk and cycle on, and has some pretty cool landmarks that show where the claimed UFO touched down. So it's all mapped out over there for you if you care to visit. Based off the aerial shots of it, we included them in the show notes also. The place is really nice looking. There's nothing out of the ordinary, really. It has a nice church to the southeast, and it's not very far away from the coast of the North Sea or the English Channel, maybe about a 10-minute drive at best. To the west, there is a small Air Force base, which is the base in question that we'll be talking about here shortly. It's called the Woodbridge Ministry of Defense, base, which currently houses two different engineer corps of the British Army. The forest is a designated SSIS site, which is called a Site of Specific Scientific Interest. A SSIS site can be designated as so because of biological or geological reasons, or possibly both. I'm not exactly sure which category the forest falls in, but it's under protection of the government as a designated site. The history of Woodbridge area proved to be pretty common. Nothing out of the ordinary either. There has been some kind of shady deaths around the area, and there has been UFO activity reports since this incident, but nothing to throw any major red flags. So I think we can conclude our survey of the area now, and we'll move to the juicy details of the story. That wasn't so bad, right? All right, now that we got some kind of idea what the forest is like, let's hear the case details, shall we? It's December 26th in 1980, and the then called RAF Woodbridge Air Force Base is in the United Kingdom. The time is approximately 0200 hours, and Security Patrol Bud Stevens and Staff Sergeant Jim Pennington are standing watch at their post located at the east gate of the base. Stevens and Pennington apparently then see some lighted figure descending into the forest, and at that point they also start to get other correspondence confirming the same observation. Now at 0300, they receive a call saying that an object was picked up by radar entering the area, and they're given the order to go and investigate what it is. Now, real quick before we go any further, I'll go ahead and call out a discrepancy that surrounds the supposed radar spot of the UFO. Now, it was first reported to the three soldiers that air traffic did spot the UFO on radar and confirmed that it dropped out of sight around the Rendlesham Forest area. During the investigation, though, when the Suffolk police became involved and they called the air traffic control that very same night to try and verify the claim for themselves, the PD was told that there was no pickup of a UFO on the radar. Then later, after these same air traffic controlmen had retired from their respective jobs, they then confirmed again that a UFO was picked up on radar. But they claimed they didn't want to speak on what happened while they were still employed as air traffic controlmen, because they didn't want to sound crazy, basically. To me, it sounds like someone also got to them and hushed them up. And we'll get into who that someone may have been later in theories, but I felt it was important to give you that information now, okay? All right, back to the story. So, Stephen hangs back and monitors the radio as it's reported they're having terrible interference that night, and the range that they normally get, they're not getting any of that. So, Stephen hangs back, and then it's John Burroughs and Jim Pennington who take off on foot to the spot where the light was coming in from. And as they walk up, they describe the craft making impossible movements at impossible speeds, all the while it's making no sound. And then suddenly it drops into the clearing of the forest and comes to rest on the forest floor. Burroughs and Pennington see the object now glowing from inside the forest and make a plan for further action. Now, because of the problems with the radio, Pennington tells Burroughs to hang back and relay back to Stevens what he's relaying to him. So it's kind of, they make a chain, basically. And should anything happen, at least he can get word back to Stevens. He then grabs his notebook and a camera, and he heads into the clearing up to the area where the craft was seen to be. Now, as he's approaching, Pennington states that he had to exert a high amount of energy in order to make it up to the object. He describes it as trying to run while underwater. And it's like this until he gets past about 10 feet away from the object. Now, once here, he says everything grows incredibly quiet. It's like he's in some kind of force field created by the craft. Pennington referred to this field as the craft's field of influence. The only thing Pennington can hear is his own breath and his own heart beating as he approaches closer to inspect the UFO sitting in front of him. He describes the craft as a black glass-like texture, smooth and seamless with no signs of lines, nuts, bolts, or rivets. It's about 9 foot wide and about 6 foot tall. with glowing lights in a pulsing manner, dark reddish, then white, then black, then blue coming from the bottom. As he further inspects the craft, he states that he could see no landing gear or exhaust pipe or anything, but the craft was not sitting on the floor, it was hovering. Now, according to Pennington, the craft was sleek and kind of triangle shaped, and wrapped around the middle were designs that Pennington could only compare to hieroglyphics of some sort. Completely in shock at this point, he somehow remembers that he brought his notebook with him, so he whips it out and begins making a sketch of what he's seeing, just to try to keep some sort of record. He records the size, shape, color, and lights. He even finds time to trace the hieroglyphic-like designs on the edge of the craft. Then Pennington decides to take his investigation one step further. He walks cautiously up to the craft where it's in an arm's reach, and then he lays one hand upon the UFO. Immediately, he's overcome by some type of telepathy, and that's the best way that he can describe it. But he starts getting a number sequence in his head, and it's a series of ones and zeros over and over again, like a program is being loaded into his head. And when he's finally released from this connection, the craft lifts off with unreal speed, and it does so without making a single noise, without causing a shock wave, or not even a gust of wind. The only thing that did happen was the animals went completely crazy. Okay? They lost their shit. Now, this was reported by all the farmers around the area, and it's important to know this, and I'll explain why a little bit later in the case. Now, all Burroughs and Pennington can do is watch this anomaly speed off, flashing a red-blue glow until it dissolves into the night sky. Pennington stands there bewildered. All he can do is look down at his notebook, and with the pen he inscribes his words, "The speed impossible." Now, without a doubt, it's a quiet trip back to the East Gate, where Stevens is waiting for an update with incredible anticipation, I'm sure. Now, here, Pennington and Burroughs begin to plan what they're going to say in their statement. I mean, even they think what went down is crazy. Imagine trying to explain this to your superiors. Now, me, myself, serving time in the armed forces, I can attest that whenever you speak to your superiors, it's intimidating. They already have an attitude where they don't want to hear any nonsense. Time is precious, and people are very busy. And if it's not something they want to hear or deal with, you can easily get railroaded and coerced into downplaying incidents. So, what Pennington and Burroughs decide to do is basically say as much as possible without sounding completely batshit crazy. The statement they give is vague, but as thorough as possible, stating, and this is a quote, "Mechanical object with red, blue, and white pulsing lights. They tried to observe the object, but it sped away incredibly," end quote. Now, with Pennington even trying to downplay the incident, possibly for the sake of his own career, he was still able to fill 4 whole pages of a written account. From here, he says he hands it over to the government employee and waits for what happens next. When the government employee returns, he hands Pennington back 2 pages and informs him that this is going to be his statement. He is told to learn it and be able to recite it flawlessly, because if he's ever asked, this is how he's supposed to respond. Now, of course, Pennington don't want to be taken as a nut job, but he doesn't fully understand why he has to lie about what he's seen. The government employee tells him for the sake of his career, if he cares to have a future in the Air Force, then he needs to cooperate. The government employee informs him that they are in charge and that they're going to handle the situation. From here, he's also instructed to stay as silent as possible about the whole situation. It's important to note, to this very day, no one can say who that government employee was, or who he worked for, or what branch he was for. And going forward, Pennington pretty much complies, but he does turn in his report to his base commander, which is a man named Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt. The colonel becomes more involved here soon, so keep that name in mind. The next day, which would be the 27th of December, Pennington does return to where everything happened on the 26th the night before, and he further inspects the area and makes plaster casts of the indentions that were left behind by the craft. He's also able to record samples of burned and damaged branches. Now, here is where Colonel Holt comes into play. It's the night of December 28, 1980, and Colonel Charles Holt is attending an officer's dinner at the RAF base. At this point, he's already been briefed on the incident that happened on the early morning hours of the 26th, and the general report was around the base. It had become quite the known issue to others stationed there at the same time. So if you ever heard gossip before, you can understand what it was probably like, especially with supposed aliens hanging around. So you've also possibly heard now in the United States we're having some strange things happening in the skies with these UFOs popping up and having to be shot down by fighter planes. And just look at all the theories that popped up in minutes on that one. So if you haven't heard about this, just turn on your local news for a second and you'll be briefed pretty quickly. So it's safe to say that the base was buzzing with speculation at this time and period. To everyone's surprise, though, the UFO decides to make another appearance. Now, almost at the same place it did the morning of the 26th. So now, Lieutenant Bruce England comes and finds Colonel Halt and simply says the UFO is back. And that was all it took. Colonel Halt excuses himself and races to the barracks to change. And once he does, he hurries to meet the other servicemen and the local police by the forest, already observing from a safe distance what this phenomena might be doing. Now, we have 2 clips to play that can give a ton of context as to what went down that night. One is from Colonel Halt returning to the scene of Rendlesham Forest many years later to give a fresh recount of what went down. And I'll say with this interview, he gives a more in-depth account of what happened, and it probably has a lot to do with him being a civilian now. The other recording is the actual radio conversations the night that Colonel Halt and company witnessed the UFO. We'll get into those now, but let me set the scene first. So Colonel Halt catches up with the crew, and he has his voice recorder with him, and he also had the other guys grab a bunch of flashlights, night vision scopes, and Geiger counters to test for any radiation that may be present. And so they're decked out. They're serious about finding out what's going on. So what we'll do now is we'll listen to the original account of the night first. And it's important to mention what and who you'll be hearing. So in the recording, you're going to be hearing Colonel Halt, of course, and he's being shown around by Lieutenant Bruce England. And you'll also hear Sergeant Monroe Navels, who is working the Geiger counter. And you'll also hear a man named Sergeant Bobby Hall, who also assists with the investigation. The recording starts off with them examining and taking readings around the forest where the craft had entered shortly after a while. The craft then makes its appearance to them, and they begin to describe what it looks like. So let's have a listen to that now, and then we'll have a listen to the other video.
150 feet or more from the initial, suspected impact point. Having a lift car, we can't get the light on to work. Seems to be some kind of mechanical problem. Let's send it back and get another light on. Meantime, we're going to take some readings at the Geiger counter and chase around the air a little bit, wait for another light on to come back in. Standing up. Yes, that's marked 1 and a 5 to 5 number. Okay, we're now approaching the area within about 25, 30 feet. What kind of readings are we getting? Anything? Just minor clicks. Minor clicks. What are the impressions? There's one. Is that a little bigger they are? Well, there's one more well to the security control. We're still getting clicks. Can we read that on a scale? Yes, sir. We're now on the 5/10 scale, and we're reading about third, fourth increment. Okay, we're still comfortably safe here. You don't have a light on, full gas ready? Security. Can you have them? There's still minor readings. The second with gas indentation. Security. This one's good. Let's go to the third one over here. Yes, now I'm getting some residual. I can read down. The meter's definitely giving the pulse. Okay, so I was going to say, let's go to the center of the area next and see what kind of reading we get out there. You're reading the clicks. I can't hear the clicks. Yes, go. Got about the center, Bruce? Okay, let's go to the center. Yes, I'm getting that's the best best deflection of the needle I've seen yet. Okay, can you give me an estimation? We're on the .5 scale. We're getting... We have a couple of these.
At approximately 0125 hours.
We're getting right at a half of a middle right now. Last point. I haven't seen it go any higher.
Let's go farther.
Okay, we'll go out toward the...
Now it's picking up.
This is out toward the number 1 indentation where we first got the strongest reading. Yeah, it's similar to what we got in the center.
Running upon this mainly in the center. Looks like an area here possibly. It could be a blast. It's in the center.
It's hard to tell. You gotta take this. My finger's about to freeze.
Yours too. Up to what, 7?
What?
Just jumped up to 7/10 there.
7/10 right there in the center? Uh-huh. We found a small blast, what looks like a blasted or scruffed up area here. We're getting very positive readings. Let's see, is that near the center?
Yes, it is. This is what we would assume would be the dead center.
Just picking up more as we go along the whole area here now.
Up to 7/10 or 7 units, let's call it, on the .5 scale. Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we make a sweep? Here, I've got my gloves on now. Let's make a sweep out around the whole area, about 10 foot out, and make a perimeter run around it, starting right back here at the corner. Back at the same first corner where we came in. Let's go right back here. Don't let it depend upon you counting the clicks. Okay, let's start. Then I can put the light on it and sweep around it. It would fly. Put it on the ground every once in a while.
This looks like an abrasion on the tree.
Okay, we'll catch that on the way back. Let's go around. One right, hit it there.
And then the interest right over here, it looks like an abrasion pointing into the center.
It is. It may be old though. There's some sap marks or something on it. Let's go on back around. All right.
So it gives some extension on there.
Yeah, this is an awkward thing to use, isn't it?
Oh, you see, I carried on my ears, but this one broke.
Are we getting any further? I'm going to shut your quarter off till we find something. Picking up? What are we up to? We're up to 2, 3 units. Deflection. You're getting in close to 1 pod.
Picking up something here. Picking up.
Okay, it's still not going above 3 or 4 units.
Picking up more though. More frequent.
Yes, you're staying steady up around 2 to 3 to 4 units now. Yeah.
One of these trees that face into the blast, what we assume is a landing site, all have an abrasion facing in the same direction towards the center.
That's interesting. Well, let's go this way around the circle here. Turn it back down here.
Picking up something here.
Collection.
Let me see that. That's kind of funny. You're right about the abrasion. I've never seen a tree that's never seen a pine tree that's been damaged react that
Here, I got
fast.
a bottle to put that in.
Yeah, you got a sample bottle?
Just
It's got
For the soil.
Can I get some of the...
Yeah, here. Stick this on the ground.
You'll notice they're all the same.
Okay, from now on, let's identify that as point number 1. That stake there. So you all know where it is if we have to sketch it. You got that set, Nevels?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To the wood bridge.
Closest to the wood bridge base.
Point 1.
Be point 1. And let's go clockwise from there.
Point 2.
Point 2? So this tree is between point 2 and point 3.
And 2 other personnel requesting to rendezvous with you at your location.
Tell them negative at this time. We'll tell them when they can come out here. We don't want them out here right now.
Okay, the sample, you're going to mark this sample number 1.
Yes.
Have them cut it off and include some of that sap and all. Is between indentation 2 and 3 on a pine tree about
About 5 feet away, about 3.5 feet off the ground.
I've got some more.
There's a round abrasion on the tree about 3.5, 4 inches in diameter. It looks like it might be old, but strange as a crystalline pine sap has come out that fast. You see those other trees here that are damaged in similar fashion?
Yes, off
towards the center of the landing site. Okay, why don't you take a picture of that and remember your picture, and you got to be writing this down. It's going to be on the tape.
Right.
Got a tape measure with you? This is the picture. Your first picture will be at the first tree, the one between Mark 2 and 3. Meantime, I'm going to look at a couple of these trees over here.
We are getting some.
You're getting rings on the tree you're taking samples from on the side facing the suspected landing site.
4 clicks max.
Up to 4. Interesting. That's right where you're taking the sample now. 4. That's the strongest point on the tree?
Yes, sir. If you come to the back, there's no clicks whatsoever.
No clicks at all on the back. It's all on the
Maybe one
side
too.
facing the... Interesting. The indentations look like something twisted as it got, as it sat down on them. Looks like someone took something and sat it down and twisted it from side to side. Very strange. We're looking at the same tree we took the sample off with this, what do you call it, star scope?
Star
You're getting a definite heat reflection off the tree, about 3 to 4 feet off the ground.
Yes, where the spot is.
Same place where the spot is. We're getting a heat.
There's a spot on the tree directly behind us. I picked up the same thing. The one off to your right.
3 trees in the area, immediately adjacent to the site, within 10 feet of the suspected landing site. We're picking up heat reflection off the trees. What's that again?
Well, shine a light on it again, Bob.
Well, you have trouble hitting it? Yeah.
Get them right on the spot, and then when you want them,
Okay, turn the light on.
You'll notice the white.
Hey. You're right. There's a white streak on the tree.
Indicates
Let me turn around and look at this tree over here now. Just a second. White streak right on the tree. I can see it. Wait a minute. Give me a little side lighting so I can find the tree. Okay. Off. I lost the tree. Okay, stop. Light on. Hey, this is eerie.
What is the hot spot?
This is strange. Here, someone want to look at the spots in the ground? Whoops. What you know? We're walking all over the park, sir. Okay, let's step back, not walk all over it. Come back here, somebody put a beam on them. But you're going to have to be back 10 or 15 feet. You see it?
Okay, fine.
Okay, lights off.
He took this long to document.
What do you think about the spot? Yeah. Let's see at the first spot. Okay, that's what we'd call spot number 3. Let's go to the back corner and get spot number 1. Spot number 1. Here's spot number 1 right here. Spot number 1 right here. You need some light? There it is right there. You focused? Okay. Looking out spot number 1 through the starlight scope.
Take a slight increase in light as I go over.
Slight increase in light at spot number 1. Let's go look at spot number 2. Spot number 2 is right over here. Right here. You see it? Okay, get focused on it. Tell me when. Okay. Lights out. Let's see what we get on it.
Slight increase.
Just a slight increase?
Try to center.
The center spot. Well, it really isn't the center. It's slightly off center. It's right there. Okay. I'm going to get your reading on it right there.
Okay.
Tell me when you're ready. Okay, lights out. This is the center spot we're looking at now, almost the center. Slight increase there. This is slightly off center toward the 1-2 side. It's some type of abrasion or something in the ground where the pine needles are all pushed back, and where we get a high reading, about deflection of 2 to 3, maybe 4, depending on the point on it.
Yes.
So there's a positive after effect?
Yes, there is definitely. That's on the center spot. There is an after effect.
What does that mean?
It means when the lights are turned off, once we are focused in and allow time for the eyes to adjust, we are getting an indication of a heat source coming out of that center spot, which will show up on the
Heat or some form of energy. It's hardly heat at this stage of the game. Looking directly overhead, one can see an opening in the trees, plus some freshly broken pine branches on the ground underneath. Looks like someone came off about 15 to 20 feet up. Some small branches about an inch or less in diameter. 0148, we're hearing very strange sounds out of the farmer's barnyard animals. It's very, very active, making an awful lot of noise.
There's been a pigmentation.
You just saw a light where? Wait a minute, slow down. Where?
Right in this position here, straight ahead, in between the tree. There it is again. Watch, straight ahead off my flashlight there, sir. There it is.
Hey, I see it too. What is it?
We don't know, sir.
So can I get some of it? Yeah, it's a strange, small red light. Looks to be out maybe a quarter to half mile, maybe further out. I'm going to switch off it. The light is gone now. It was approximately 120 degrees from the site. Is it back again?
Yes, sir.
Oh, douse the flashlights in. Let's move out to the edge of the clearing so we can get a better look at it. See if you can get the star scope on it. The light's still there, and all the barnyard animals have gotten quiet now. Yeah, we're heading about 110 to 120 degrees from the site out through to the clearing now. Still getting a reading on the meter. About 2 clicks. Meter's jumped 3 to 4 clicks, getting stronger.
Now it's stopped. Now it's coming up. Hold up. There we go. It's about approximately 4 foot off the ground. It's coming at to 110 degrees.
All right, just turn the meter off. You gotta say that again. About 4 feet off the ground, about 110 degrees, getting a reading of about 4 clicks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but
Excuse me. Now it's dying.
no, it's not. I think it's something other than the ground. I think it's something variable here.
Tree right over.
We just frightened the first night bird we've seen. We're about 150 or 200 yards from the site. Everything else is just deathly calm. There is no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead.
And it's yellow.
I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been.
Yellow.
It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There is no doubt about it. This is weird.
To the left.
Yeah, definitely moving off.
Two lights.
One
light to the front,
okay.
One light to the left.
Keep the flashlights off. There's something very, very strange. Get the headset on. See if it gets any stronger. Okay. Give us a rundown.
Notation that this is on the beta reading, too.
It's on the beta reading?
The
Okay.
shield has been removed.
Okay. Pieces are falling off it again.
But it just moved to the right.
Yeah.
Off to the right.
Strange. Oh, why again to the left? Let's approach to the edge of the woods up there. You want to do it without lights? Let's do it carefully. Come on. Okay, we're looking at the thing. We're probably about 200 to 300 yards away. It looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side. And when you put the star scope on it, it sort of has a hollow center, a dark center. It's like the pupil of an eye looking at you and winking. And the flash is so bright through the star scope that it almost burns your eye. We passed the farmer's house and across in the next field. Now we have multiple sightings of up to 5 lights with a similar shape and all, but they seem to be steady now rather than a pulsating or glow with a red flash. We just crossed the creek, and we're getting what kind of readings now? Getting through 3 good clicks on the meter, and we're seeing strange lights in the sky. 244, we're at the far side of the second farmer's field, and made sighting again about 110 degrees. This looks like it's clear out to the coast. It's right on the horizon. Moves about a bit and flashes from time to time. Still steady or red in color. Also, after negative readings in the center of the field, we're picking up slight readings, 4 or 5 clicks now on the meter. 305, we see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon. 305 at about 10 degrees horizon directly north, we've got two strange objects, half-moon shape, dancing about with colored lights on them. But guess to be about 5 to 10 miles out, maybe less. The half-moons have now turned into full circles. There's one of those eclipse or something there for a minute or two. 03:15 now, we've got an object about 10 degrees directly south, 10 degrees off the horizon. And the ones to the north are moving, one's moving away from us. Moving out fast.
This one on the right's heading away, too.
Yeah, we're both heading north. Okay, here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal. 330, and the objects are still in the sky, although the one to the south looks like it's losing a little bit of altitude. We're turning around and heading back toward the base. The object to the south is still beaming down lights to the ground. 0400 hours, one object still hovering over Woodbridge Base at about 5 to 10 degrees off the horizon, still moving erratic and similar lights and beaming down earlier.
Man, that was a bunch of spy balloons, right? That was crazy. I wish I was there that night. That would have been something to witness there. So, well, let me play this other video for you, and then we'll go over what we think of it. This is the video of Colonel Charles Halt when he went back many years later to give a recent recount of everything that went down. So this is only Colonel Charles Halt giving the interview.
Down this trail, which was significantly improved now, it was a ruddy, muddy dirt trail. We turned here in the Jeep. We went up there about 150 or 200 yards, and there were 2 or 3 pickup trucks, 6-passenger four-wheel drive pickup trucks with light-alls, and 10 or 15 cops there. We stopped there. That's when we looked into the forest, and they said, there's where the landing site was the first night. And we went in there. Now, you can't do that now because the forest is too thick, but in those days there were tall Corsica pines with a tall canopy, and you could walk underneath very easily and see very clearly.